3 weeks from today, on Monday, March 31st, the book version of Mythal Lethal is finally coming out, with additional never-before-seen artwork. And on top of that additional artwork, I wanted to add a little bit more today. Some of the gods that show up in that series I didn't do designs for, and I wanted to give them those designs. So I'll do those today and then add them as the last thing to the book. For the narration today, we're gonna get a bit of Panini banter, including Ares from Mythal Lethal, because he met Benny and Champagne in, I think, the Powerhouses Community Redraw episodes. And then I'm also just gonna do a bit of design notes around the making of the Mythal Lethal book, talk a bit about what I made for the new art, and I'm very excited to get into it, so let's do that now, shall we? Let's go! Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show.
Oh, Doc, I don't know how you do it, but this panini is even better than the last. Any chance I could convince you to be the head chef for the RAS Foundation? Cause I just want to be eating your food non-stop.
Thanks, Ares. But I can't take all the credit this time. Pantover over there actually came up with the sauce for these ones, and I think the sauce is the thing that makes it. Thank you, Dr. McGregor, but the sauce is just a minute detail on the full canvas of the deliciousness you created. I'll whip up the next batch myself, but you are still the master, and I the pupil. Yeah, I don't know if that'll be true for much longer. You're really getting good at this, but I appreciate it. And actually, Dresden already did ask me about, coming to cook for the RAS Foundation, but I don't know if that's really the setting I want to work in. I am kind of warming up to the idea of opening a restaurant, though. I mean, apparently variants of me from all over the multiverse have already done it, so why not me? Yeah, he's already got a great sous chef and pan over here, and I can build them all their cooking equipment, easy cheesy. I mean, I think we can just buy some pretty good equipment, Danny. I appreciate the offer, but I don't know if you actually need to, make our stuff. Nonsense, I can make stuff better than anything you could buy out there. Plus, I want to secretly build some mech armors into all your ovens and stuff, like I did with that coffin at my funeral that one time. Just in case you ever get attacked. Then boom, your toaster's a mech arm. Bang, your panini press is a laser helmet. Zow, your toilet's a hydro cannon. Would be pretty funny to shoot a villain with a toilet hydro cannon, but having all that might be overkill. What if we settle on one piece of equipment secretly being a mech armor? I mean, besides my actual arm that doubles as a panini press. Let's make it 2, and one of them I won't tell you which one it is. It'll just activate one day when you need it the most. Alright, yeah sure, let's do it. Great, let's see if that foreshadowing ever pays off. I bet it won't.
What does that mean, Sharp?
You're just gonna have to get used to him saying stuff like that, Ares. It's a once or twice per conversation thing.
Right, so you guys wanted to hear about some of the variants of mythical gods from my world, right?
Oh yeah, look at you getting us on track already. Normally when we say we're gonna talk about something, we usually just end up bantering about other stuff for like 95% of the conversation, but I guess we can get on topic early for once. So, if you're the Greek god of war, does that mean your old man is Zeus? Like, the Zeus?
Right you are, Doc. Though calling him the Zeus is a bit of a stretch given even my world has had 2 Zeuses at one point, and there are plenty of other variations of him out in the multiverse. Tarsa brought over another version of Zeus from another dimension at one point, who wasn't actually an immortal, to use him to trick my world into thinking Zeus was on her side on her Imperium Pantheon. I mean, my old man technically was on her side for a bit, but that she betrayed him, it's a whole thing. My old man's gone through a lot of phases, but ever since the fall of the Imperium Pantheon, he's been a pretty solid guy. Even got his infidelity under wraps enough to where my old lady Hera forgave him and they managed to patch things up. Normally I think if someone cheats, that should be the end of it. But there's a lot more time for someone to make up for what they've done, and grow up a bit when you live for thousands of years, unlike you mortals.
Huh, yeah, never really thought about that. I mean, folks can change a lot in one lifetime, let alone living for thousands of years. But one little thing, if gods from your world have runes on them like overseers do, but Tarsa brought a Zeus from another world, did he have runes on him too? How would people have fallen for that if he didn't?
He did, sort of, but now I realize they were just, purely decorative. Must have been some kind of illusion Tarsa cast to keep up appearances. Plus, lots of us gods will keep our runes concealed so people can't tell when we're using them. Some of us can move them around our bodies at will, some can even send them inside their bodies to hide them. I keep mine literally close to the chest.
Ah, that's cool. Subtle post-series retcons are fun.
What there, Betty?
Well, got the second one already. Let's see if he goes for 3/4 wall breaks.
I'm gonna be honest, this drawing of Zeus may be one of my favorite drawings in all of Mythal Lethal now. I mean, it's weird because it is a very simple drawing. It's a very simple pose. The design isn't that complicated, but I'm just super happy with how it turned out. The proportions are really cool, the rendering's cool, and maybe leaning a little bit closer towards the cartoony side, as I talked about in, I don't know, maybe it was one of the Illustrator Reacts or a few things. I've been wanting to play around with some simpler rendering, and this isn't that much simpler than what I usually do. Maybe it's just because the design is less involved, but I don't know, this one feels just so solid, and I'm really happy with it. Now, as mentioned in the banter, and, you know, I guess spoiler alert for Mythal Lethal if you didn't watch it, but there are two versions of Zeus in the storyline, and one of them's an imposter of the other. And I had up on screen a reference image of the imposter Zeus. And I was going to give this one a very similar design, but a little bit different, because it had to be clear to the people in the world that this exists in. They needed to be able to be tricked into thinking they were the same being. But I also wanted to give this Zeus a bit of a different design, and when I originally made this Zeus orange, I was like, I think, even though that kind of makes sense that they'd both go for the same color scheme, the imposter would go for the same color scheme that this Zeus tended to wear to help trick people further. I was like, I think that's going to be a little bit confusing for people, so I'm just going to go with some similar design elements and give this guy blue as his core color instead of orange. And I mean, it's such a small thing story-wise that I'm like, I'm fine changing this. I think it's going to be less confusing to the audience, even if in-world it might have made a bit more sense for them to look even more similar design-wise. Now, in terms of the art that I've added to Mythal Lethal, on top of the gods that I'm adding today, I also did a drawing of Zamrazalak. It's also a pretty simple one. She's one of the deities I made up. Not going to show it here. That'll be in the final book. Then I did a nice big double-page splash that I've shown a few teasers of that oh, actually, you know what? Maybe that's my favorite drawing in all of Mythal Lethal. Although I do really like the simplicity of this, but that one is, I felt like there was something missing between chapters 3 and 4. There's a bit of a 2-week time jump between those times, and I was like, I feel like we're missing something a little bit story-wise, and I didn't want to add a whole nother chapter, but I was like, ooh, I can add a nice big double-page splash that gives people a sense of what the characters were doing in this time. I reference in chapter 4 that they had fought a manticore, and so I, add that into the drawing, the design of that manticore, and then I add a quillin into the drawing as well, referencing that. That doesn't really get mentioned in the story, but it suggested that they fought lots of other creatures in the 2-week time skip. So I really liked adding that double-page spread as sort of a mini chapter 3.5 to help people have a little bit clearer of an idea of what Mythal and Ortis, our main characters, were doing in that time. And then finally, I did character introduction shots for all of the most important characters in the story, like Mythal, Ortis, Tarsa, Lorna, Amphenella, and Ares, I think is all of them. And they're not going to be full-page drawings. They're probably going to be like half-page drawings. And the ones of our main characters aren't full-body shots either. They're kind of like torso-ish to head. And they also don't necessarily come in on the first page that a character is introduced, but as that character is becoming more important to the story. I'll show a little tease of what they look like without actually showing the full thing. People who get the book will get to see all the new bonus art. Oh, also at the end of the book, there'll just be something like 8 pages of bonus other PopCross art, stuff that doesn't have any copyright issues attached to it, but just like a little bonus gallery of extra stuff. Stuff that you would have seen in other series on this channel in the last year or so. Anyway, I'm super happy with Zeus here, and now let's move on to Quetzalcoatl.
So you've got like the Greek gods like yourself, and that's cool and all, but in the world I come from, no offense obviously, but those are like the standard ones to pop up in pop culture. What other pantheons you got in your world?
Well, the Aztec pantheon has really flourished since the days of Tarsa. Quetzalcoatl is one of the most upstanding gods we got, and he and our god overseer, Ortis Benimo, have always gotten along real well. Quetzi is basically the overseer when Ortis isn't around now, and he doesn't really have to be around that much anymore. Our world isn't a paradise by any stretch, but it's a lot nicer than most other worlds I've visited in the multiverse. Anyway, how about him? Is old Quetzi unique enough for you?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I has heard of him, but I can't really think of any pop culture thing he's been in my world off the top of me dome. He's like a big flying snake, right?
Most of the time, that's sort of like his standard form, but he can be a person too. Real tough cookie, that guy. Surprised he was ever actually captured by Tarsan or Pantheon at all. Was held in the Shinto underworld for a while with a bunch of other gods until Hortus freed him. Well, he was there looking for the gut queller.
I hope you don't take offense to this, Mr. God of War, sir, but you guys throw around a lot of terms as if people are just supposed to know what the heck you dudes are talking about.
That's fair, but the more time you spend with this group, the more you're just gonna kinda roll with the punches on all the crazy stuff. Pan here didn't even know about other dimensions until a few days ago. Yeah, we've been easing him into some of his stuff. Ain't even let him meet the gopher with a ray gun yet.
Wait, that dude was real? I saw him when I went to the bathroom earlier. He said I was hallucinating because of an interdimensional curse, and the only way to appease it was to leave $20 on the ground as an offering to the multiversal gopher god.
Oh, jeez. Well, we'll get that back for you, Pan. What the flip does Archibald even need $20 from another dimension for? Who knows? I'm still curious what's going on in the dimension he's the overseer of. Ain't been back there since, our first date night, champ.
I thought I had a lot of weird friends, but with Sam and Andy, the gopher overseer with a ray gun.
The gopher-seer, but go on.
Right. And having a buddy who likes making sandwiches and is literally called Pan-E-Knee, you guys might have me beat on the whole, weird friends department.
Yeah, and you ain't even met Grapefruit Melancholy the 16th yet.
Oh yeah, come to think of it, I ain't met him either.
I know, that's why I'm dropping another bit of foreshadowing that may or may not actually ever get paid off.
It's like you guys are speaking English, but every fourth word is some crazy nonsense I don't understand, dudes.
Yeah, our group's collective background and lore is getting a little more impenetrable every day. You either get used to it or you just fall off until maybe we randomly need yous for a real specific mission or something. Yeah, like good old Gangadrin Sambhavna. Is he gonna come back at some point?
Who's that again?
Exactly. Now, when I was originally putting out Mythal Lethal, I did do 2 drawings of Quetzalcoatl, the Aztec god. So I did technically draw him in his serpent form, but I never drew him in his human form, and he switches back and forth between the two, I think a few times in the story, and there is one specific point, I think in chapter 10, where he kinda is flying through the air, transforms into his human form with an axe, slices through a creature, then switches back to his monster form, or his serpent form, and so I was like, I kinda wanna do a drawing of him as a human. We never got that in the original. I think it would be a cool thing to add in that chapter. I kinda wish I hadn't said that he had an axe. I wish I probably just kinda threw that in as I was writing the story, and probably could have taken the time to look up some more specific Aztec weaponry, which I did reference for this drawing and making this axe that he's using, but I also didn't want to change anything canonically as I was working on the editing for Mythal Lethal. Like in the book version, there are some changes, additions that are all slight, like a few added pieces of context or adding a little bit of foreshadowing to something earlier in the book that in the series I hadn't necessarily thought of in the later chapters, but just add in. So there's a few tweaks like that, but I tried not to change anything canonically, just adding things like context, because I didn't want people to read the book to get a dramatically different story or canonical set of events to people who watched the series on YouTube. So I was like, I'm not gonna go and change it to another thing. I said it was an axe, let's just try and pull some Aztec imagery and inspiration for designing this axe. And I'm fairly happy with how it turned out. I do end up changing a few little color things after the screen recording's done. I had made his eyes purple, and something about that was really throwing me off. It looked more like his serpent form, so in that sense it was good, but it just really wasn't working for me, so I made his eyes a little bit more normal human kind of colors, and I changed some of the feathers on his head just to be a different color. I thought it worked a bit better. Also, something I noticed in a lot of the drawings I was doing later in the series, or just even in drawing stuff after the fact, is I kept forgetting to add the gods' runes, and then when I did add the gods' runes to them, I would usually make them elevated as if they're actively using them, like I did in the first Zeus drawing in this episode. And this time I was like, okay, well, if the god isn't actively using the runes on their body, it should be flat flush against them. And I don't have a ton of examples of that in this series, so with our Quetzalcoatl here, I was like, okay, let's have his runes flat against his body in this drawing. But even then, it's one of the few examples where we actually have that in the series. And I don't think I ever specifically say, like, when a god or goddess is actively using the runes, they'll elevate off their body. But I think some people have picked that up from context. But I don't know, it's also not like a big, super important element to the story or anything. Anyway, I hope you all like this design.
So, when Tarsa was controlling your world, was it like overt dictator stuff or more subtle manipulation? If we got to deal with her again, we should know what we're up against.
Well, it seemed pretty overt to me, but that's probably because I had more information than most people. When you've got your own life going on and your own problems, it can be easy to just take for granted that the people in charge who say they're doing things for your best interest aren't doing just that, without thinking about it too much,
Yeah, I think that's a thing in lots of worlds. I got this theory that in my world, Big Accountant is manipulating the school systems. The government expects kids to pay income tax when they grow up, but they don't actually teach them how to do that in school, which of course means lots of folks think they need to get an accountant, when really doing your taxes yourself is actually a pretty easy process, even when you're self-employed.
Wait, I'm sorry, did you just imply that you actually do pay your taxes, Benny?
I don't like to talk about it, but I did do it one time, and it was easy enough to do, but I was like, you know what, to each their own, but paying taxes just isn't for me.
I'd love to hear you say that right to the IRS in your world, but more importantly, when you said big accountant earlier, was you talking about the collective industry of accountants in your world, or did you literally mean a big accountant?
It's, not really something you need clarified, Doc.
You'd think not, but with Benny, you do kind of need clarification on stuff like that.
Yeah, he's right. And I genuinely wish with all my heart that I could say I literally meant a big accountant who's manipulating the school systems, but I did just mean the industry this time.
You guys really do get off topic a lot. I could tell you about more gods and goddesses from my world, but we could also just chat about whatever and keep eating paninis. Speaking of which, could I get another, I was gonna say one, but maybe another 3 over here, Pan?
Coming up, dude. Here are 2 fresh ones, Mr. Kratos, God of War, sir.
Oh, I'm not, whatever, close enough. I mean, Mythal was always more Kratos-like than I ever was, but we've thrown a lot of nonsense talk at you today, kid.
Oh, speaking of the kid, you got any epic healing type gods in your world? In fighting the Archons and Tarsa, we could really use more healer types around, given our best one is off at school.
Yeah, we got a few of them. The best one is probably Brigid. She's the Celtic goddess of healing, fertility, and life. Was a big help in taking down the Imperium Pantheon. Unfortunately, she's at God Sleep right now. She wasn't injured or anything, but lots of gods will decide to go into God Sleep for a few centuries to wake up in a new, fresh version of our world, to keep life more interesting. It'd be like if you got bored of your life and put yourself in cryosleep or something, and set yourself to wake up after technology had advanced a few hundred years in your world. We do have some other healing gods and goddesses, but, I feel like I've kept this quiet long enough. Is your, friend here okay? What's up with her?
Ugh, I am mourning the loss of my dignity. Leave me be with my paninis. Vasilia's just sad because she went to try and seduce a cat alien man in another dimension who'd rejected her a bunch of times by showing him that she's secretly a were-jaguar, because he's only attracted to monsters or something, but it turns out it was more her personality he wasn't into. She ain't used to rejection, given, she looks like that.
Okay, seriously, could you follow any of that, God of War dude?
Not really, they lost me on that one too, but I'm just gonna smile and nod and eat my paninis.
Now with Brigid here, I wasn't entirely sure going into it where I was going to set her drawing. I mean, with all of these drawings, I've put pretty vague environments in, but they have been influenced by where I was pretty sure I was going to put these designs in the book. And with Brigid, I was like, one of the main things that she does in this story is use a broken piece of the multiversal orb to amplify her abilities and heal people, and specifically healing Ordis when he literally dies at one point in the story. But her healing power paired with the multiversal orb lets her heal him, so I was like, maybe I'll draw her in that context. I'm also pretty sure that chapter that happens in, I think chapter 7, there's not a ton of art. There's one big double-page splash of Tarsa fighting the Reaper, and then the Reaper rings jumping over to the Vigilance storyline, which Guess that's probably a spoiler for some people. And we don't find out the context in Vigilance either. You kind of have to have watched or read both to get what happened. But anyway, Brigid I felt was an important enough character that she should get a design as well. I was referencing a bunch of different Celtic mythology. I think I added a fair amount of little design elements inspired by what I was seeing in Celtic mythology, but I still feel like this one feels a little bit bare. Maybe I'll add some more details into her outfit afterwards. Don't know if I'll have time for that. It's definitely not a guarantee. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this, and I like the runes kind of popping up in front of her hand and over her arm, amplified by her holding the multiversal orb. And also, while I'm talking about the book, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to my mom. With Vigilance, I got a professional editor to go through it, and that was a good experience. She did a good job, but even after the fact, like my mom, it's very difficult, even when you have multiple people going through a whole book, to catch every single error. So this isn't to comment on my editor or on the work I was doing on Vigilance, but my mom, in reading Vigilance, because she is a big fan of my work, not just as my mom, she really likes the kind of stuff I write, she found a few little issues in the book. And so after that I was like, well, why don't I just work with you and you edit Mythal Lethal? So she and I have both done 2 full passes through it, and we're going to do a little bit more spot checking before the actual book comes out. But even with that, I've had to come to a point of acceptance of there's probably going to be one spelling error, maybe a couple. My main thing is just making sure any error that might pop up in the book is not something that would distract someone from enjoying it, like a few misplaced commas or something. The odds of someone noticing that are pretty small. I don't think I would ever notice that in a book myself. But overall, I'm super excited that it's finally coming out, and I hope you like this extra art that we're putting in.
There's the second one. Let's see if he goes for free. Let's see if he goes for 3/4 wall break. 3/4 wall break. 3/4 wall breaks. 3/4 wall breaks. 3/4 wall breaks. What the flip does Archibald even need $20 from another dimension for?
This is my job. Who knows? I'm still curious what's going on in the... Who knows? I'm still curious what's going on in the... Alright. Who knows? I'm still curious what... Who knows? I'm still curious what's going on in the... So I've never talked about this before, but for certain characters, when I'm doing their voices, I have specific keywords that I'll just say in their voice to get into that character. And for Pan, I literally just go, Zeus, and then start doing his lines.
Zeus. Coming up, dude.
And for Ares, I go,
Right, the poison for Cusco poison.
But every time I do the Zeus one, I just go, Zeus. I just feel like such a weirdo.
Zeus.
It's so nice that we're finally in the home stretch for releasing Mythal Lethal. About a year after the series started, I think. I think it started in late April. But anyway, I'm so stoked for people to see the additional artwork in it. I wanted to release it 2 weeks from now, but I knew giving myself that extra week just to do a pass through the proof copy and make sure everything's fine was gonna make me a lot more relaxed. Anyway, if you enjoyed this or you enjoyed the series of Mythal Lethal, you might want to check out one of the latest community redraws in which the Archon demons are bantering about Tarsa's new Imperium pantheon. Or maybe check out another series like Fear of the Demon Hunters, which is probably the next one that'll get turned into a book, but I'm not giving any estimate on how long the formatting and editing will take, because I've learned that it's a much more time-consuming process than I thought. Anyway, besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note, and the thought I want to leave people with is a quote that I read a while back from Jim Quick. I may have even used it in an ending note before, but he said, "What if you woke up tomorrow with only the things that you expressed gratitude for today?" It's easy to become complacent and just expect that some things should be a part of our life, but some things we didn't have before, and aren't necessarily guaranteed to have in the future. So try to think of some stuff that you're really glad you have, that you might have been taking for granted lately. I hope that's inspiring. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Friday. Goodbye.